It's about that time of day again. Welcome back, guys and gals. Joseph James here once again, schooltrade.com, sidewaysmarkets.com. Get another psychology video coming at you here this morning. Today's trading psychology question of the day. You know, I always appreciate you guys submitting those questions below the video today. He says, JJ, I need some help dealing with losing trades. He says, I can be having the best day, the best week, but then one loss, and all of a sudden I lose my confidence, and it seems to all unravel on me from there. He says, I know you can help me, man, right? What do you suggest for dealing with losses? How do you deal with losing trades? So in today's psychology lesson, I'm going to show you a strategy for not only dealing with losses, but also using the stress that comes with those losses as an advantage, right? As a performance enhancing, right, stress that comes with losses to help you earn, right, more money in the future. But before I go into today's lesson, I want to remind you this psychology lesson is the most recent in a series of videos that we publish every week here on this YouTube channel. And these videos build on the topics we've already discussed. So this is the first time you're watching, great to meet you. If it's the first time you're here, you might want to go back and start from the beginning to get the most value out of these lessons. I'll leave a link up above here, right, in case you want to go back and start to watch from the beginning. I also want to remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure you click that little bell icon so you can always get notified every time I post something new. And if you really want to stay in tune with what's going on here at School of Trade, head over to schooloftrade.com, join our mailing list. Again, I'll put the link in the description below the video here today. All right, got that out of the way. Let's jump into today's lesson. The topic of today's lesson is dealing with the stress that comes from losses and how we can use that stress to actually enhance our performance in the future. Now, in previous lessons, we talked about how stress, as opposed to distress, can be used to our advantage when it's combined with a positive mindset, when it's used in combination with a productive daily goal, right? And when we're working hard to do something that really matters to us. In fact, you know, human beings, we're pretty powerful creatures. We can put ourselves under tremendous stress in all kinds of situations and still come out with a positive experience, right? If we have the correct mindset and the correct coping strategy. So today I want to talk about developing the right mindset for losses. And of course, the different coping strategies. There are actually 5 different coping strategies that we can use to turn stress from a losing trade into something that will actually help you make more money in the long run. Now, the first, having the correct mindset. Let's talk about the correct mindset, because having the correct mindset means understanding that losses are unfortunately a necessary part of our trading career. You know, we can't predict which trades will be winners and which trades will be losses. So when we find ourselves in a bad position, we have to take the loss quickly because it allows us to get into a better position and make a profit in the future. Taking losses, therefore, is essential for capital preservation. We probably all heard that's a word before, right? Capital preservation is rule number 1 for a successful trading career. So it's important to embrace this different kind of mindset. You know, losses are actually tools of capital preservation, right? Your stop loss, right, is a tool to help preserve capital. So rather than just losing money, it's actually a good thing, right? They are good things when those losses are kept small. And in previous lessons, we've talked about keeping those losses under 5%, but the goal being 3% of your total account balance, right? So losses are good when they're taken quickly and when they're a small percentage of our overall account size. Losses become a problem when they take up a big chunk of our account and when we take them personally, right? We've talked about that before, internalizing them, right? And when we allow that loss to prevent us from doing our job, which we're going to discuss more in the future. Next, talking about mindset, if we want the correct mindset, we have to use a daily goal that's within our control. You know, far too many traders have a daily goal that's tied to a specific amount of profit, which is completely out of our control. For example, when I was first started trading many years ago, my daily goal was foolishly a dollar amount. It was $500 per day. And I would force myself to trade all day long, including the afternoon, even some of the overnight session, if I hadn't reached that $500 goal. And guess how many times I reached that goal when I had to overtrade? 0. So how do we know if the market will give us enough opportunities each day? What if it doesn't, right? What if the market was a sleeper that day? Am I then a failure that day because I didn't get my goal? Do I beat myself up because I didn't make my $500 even when the market was uneventful and sleepy? Hopefully you see my point on this. This type of goal is not only short-sighted, but destructive as well. A better, more productive daily goal, or a better productive strategy for a daily goal, uses your trading journal, which we're going to talk more about later on this week, to identify opportunities for improvement and then take actions we can keep getting better, right? Use that as our daily goal. For example, my goal today might be to avoid the temptation to move my stop loss and just take the loss when the trade goes against me. Or my goal could be making sure that I use all my entry rules before I take a trade. These are examples of a daily goal that I can control, right? It's not in the hands of the market, right? I can't control the market. And that will not only make me a much better trader over the long run, but also set myself up for success with a positive mindset during the day when I need it the most. Right? So rather than having a financial daily goal, make it a daily goal that I can control. Because then, even if we get a crummy day in the market today, I still can have a good day because my daily goal I can control. All right, another important factor of a correct mindset, and again, enabling us to overcome and handle losses, is having something to look forward to outside of trading, such as a hobby. Now, I realize that we all want to be successful, and most of us are willing to invest the time at our computers, invest nights and weekends to learn this. But let's be honest, we can't work all day, every day. We have to find something outside of our offices that bring us some joy. Whatever it is, find something you can look forward to, even if you don't have a great day at your desk. Because just like neglecting other parts of our personal life, which we talked about towards the end of last year, it'll soon bleed over into your professional life. So find a hobby, something you enjoy, something that brings a smile to your face, even if your trading wasn't that great today. Right? And you'll see almost immediate improvement during your trading day, right? Because you will fed the ego. I've talked about this many times. You've got to feed yourself first, right? Doing things that you enjoy so you can take that and give it back to your trading career. Okay, so those are some tips for developing the right mindset, and we've discussed most of those in previous lessons, so I didn't go into a lot of detail on those. Now let's talk about the coping mechanism or the coping strategies we want to use for losses. When combined with the correct mindset, an effective coping strategy can allow even the worst trader to see daily progress and eventually a successful trading career. For example, every trader deals with losses. Sometimes we deal with a series of losses. It's not fun, but how we handle those losses will be the difference between a very short and painful attempt at trading or a very long and profitable trading career. It's all about how we cope with the stress that comes from losses. We all learned how to cope with certain situations when we were kids, right? When we were young. And most of us still use the same coping strategies as adults. And that's where we get into trouble as professional traders. For example, when we were kids, when we were children, right, we may have used one coping strategy that worked great with mom and dad, but then if we tried to use that same strategy in the markets or that same strategy with our boss, yeah, they probably didn't have the same effectiveness, right? And we could lose our job because of it, or as traders, we lose money because of it. The bottom line is everyone copes with stressful situations, right? Remember, we talked about the difference between stress and distress earlier on in this psychology series. We all deal with the stress, right, which is not a bad thing, but the stress in different ways. And our job, and today we're going to talk about how to figure out how we cope with stress from a losing trade and see maybe if we're using the wrong strategy and what we can do, right, to make, right, or to use the right strategy or a more effective strategy, right? Right or wrong may not be the right answer for that, but the most effective strategy. Now, from what I can tell, and this is my own personal opinion, there are 5 common strategies for coping with stressful situations, right? One of them would be a losing trade, okay? One would be confrontation. 2, ignore and avoid. The third strategy for coping will be social support. The fourth one, blaming yourself, the blame game, right? Beating yourself up. And the fifth would be what we call step back and investigate. So confrontation, ignore and avoid, social support, blame yourself, and step back and investigate. Okay, so let's take a deeper look at each of these 5 strategies and let's see which is most effective and why. The first coping strategy for handling losses is one of the most common among type A personality traders. And type A people, they make up a big chunk of the trading population, and that is confrontation. Right? With this confrontational approach, when you take a loss, you immediately try and take another trade to get back at the market. Whatever pain the market gives me, well, I'm going to give it back to you 10 times more. Now, this type of coping strategy may work in high school locker rooms and, some high performance business environments, but, anyone who's tried dealing with losses by pushing back at the market usually ends up losing more money, and even worse, usually work ourselves into such a horrible state that you're exhausted and you wind up doing yourself long-term harm from the stress that becomes distress, right? And the stress that gets placed on your body. If you find yourself in this type of mental meltdown situation, if you recall, I did a video a number of months ago on this topic. Again, I'll put a link in the description for it. You might want to go back and watch that video as well if you find yourself in that confrontational strategy, right? And you find yourself exhausted after doing it. Now, the second way to handle the stress of a loss is to just ignore it. Pretend it never happened and move on. This was my weapon of choice when I was learning how to trade. What loss, right? Just ignore it. See, I already feel better about it, right? Now, all kidding aside, this may work in social interactions with other people. I got to tell you, the most effective way to deal with an obnoxious human being is to just ignore them. And I tell you, they will eventually tire out and go away. It really does work. Try it on airplanes, public scenarios, right? It really does work, right? Just ignore, let them they will tire out. Eventually they'll stop, right? And it's a very passive way. I have a smile on my face, right? Because some people can do it and some people can't. However, let's be honest. The idea of ignoring the losses as they pile up in your account isn't going to make that problem go away. And if you don't start identifying and fixing those mistakes, right, you'll have zero chance of trading your way back into profits again. You'll keep making the same mistakes, keep losing money, and eventually, right, you'll get a margin call from your broker, right, and your days of trading will be over. Now, I can't tell you how many times I speak to a client who is consistently losing money, but yet they truly believe that they will trade their way back into the green again, as if this is just a temporary losing streak. Okay, I did this when I was a new trader. I was lying to myself, and you're lying to yourself as well if you think this is true. Trust me, right? That was my strategy, and I have 2 blown accounts and a lot of just psychological scars that come with it, right, to prove it. Now, the third common way of coping with stress is to seek social support. In other words, when things don't go your way, right, you dial up all your friends, right, and they tell you how great you are and how it wasn't your fault, right, and you feel better about yourself usually. This works to an extent, but after your mom tells you how great you how great you are and your friends cheer you up, you still need to take that next trade, and unless your friends are professional traders, something tells me their advice isn't going to make this go away anytime soon. Trading is an individual game, and no matter what your best friends say about how smart and talented you are, the markets are going to open tomorrow and you'll keep having the same troubles if you don't do something different today. Now, one of my favorite mantras, and if you ever emailed me, you notice it's at the end of my email signature. One of my favorite kind of mantras or sayings is, life doesn't get better by chance, it gets better by change. If you want different results, you need to put in different ingredients. It's like a math equation. To get a different result, you've got to have different ingredients in there. Life doesn't get better by chance. It gets better by change, right? And so you got to make those changes if you want to see different results. Okay, let's keep moving. The fourth, and certainly one of the most common coping strategies for losses, is to blame yourself or blame something else. I love that one, right? If we take a loss, we get angry at ourselves, We blame our stupid indicators and our horrible charting software, right? I used to do this way too often to myself. I was a blamer of myself early in my career. I would say, what were you thinking about trying to be a day trader? Are you an idiot, Joe? You must be, right? If you thought this would work, right, you better get that resume updated. I used to always tell myself that when I was a new trader. Better keep that resume on your desk, right? Because you're going to be done this career real soon. Luckily, I learned that lesson fast enough. But obviously, this type of strategy usually does more harm than good. And I find that I do this to myself when I'm overtired from working too many hours, right? And also, if I haven't fed my ego, I know it kind of sounds bad, right? Feeding your ego. But you know what I mean, right? If all you're doing is slaving away at your computer and in the first few months you're not seeing great results, you're going to hate yourself. You're going to blame the markets. You're so tired. You're so strung out over this, right? You're not thinking clearly. Getting a good night's sleep, because you're overtired, go for a bike ride, take some time off, whatever it might be, that usually takes care of this. But again, right, even after you temporarily stop playing the blame game, you still need to make some changes, right, to find a better way. All right, let's keep going. The fifth way to cope with losses is to acknowledge the situation for what it is. Take a step back, gather information, and then investigate why the loss occurred and how to prevent it from happening again in the future. This is much more difficult than all the others, right? It's definitely the most difficult strategy we've mentioned, because what does it do? It requires us to take responsibility and then even more, take immediate action. But I'll tell you right now, if you've lost as much money as I have in my trading career, right? I lost a lot of money early on, right? When we lose money, it's natural, it's instinctual to want to place the blame on something else, right? Self-preservation, blame something else, and then avoid it altogether. Why would I want to keep feeling like this, right? Just ignore it, right? Which, of course, makes this strategy effective but challenging, right? To accept the loss, to take responsibility, and then take action, even though it's painful, it's difficult. It's not easy. Okay. So which of these strategies works best? Right? I gave you 5 of them. Looking back at these different coping strategies, I think it's pretty obvious that the step back and investigate strategy would probably be the most effective in the long run. Not the easiest, but the most effective. And I also think you could also toss in a little social support along the way, because we are social creatures. We do really well in tribes, small groups, right, as human beings. So I think as I was reading this, right, I think it was pretty obvious what the answer was, right? You probably listened, you're probably like, you know what, that's the right one, right? So why don't more people do it then? Well, here's the reason why, and this is the reason why it's so difficult, because we learned coping strategies as kids, right? When we were young, we learned different ways to deal with different situations, and now as adults trying to be professional traders, it's easy for us to assume that these strategies will work in the markets, right? And we don't learn those lessons until it's too late. I didn't learn that lesson until I had to literally borrow money from my third trade account, right? My friend, a good close friend of mine, loaned me the money, right, for my third trade account, and that was ultimately what kind of kicked me into wake up, right? You don't want to lose somebody else's money. And I started making changes, right? So a lot of us, though, we don't learn those lessons until we have the resume back in our hands and we're going back to a 9-to-5 job. Okay, boy, we've covered a lot in this lesson so far. Let's do a quick recap, and then let's put this together in an actionable strategy. Okay, so coping with stress comes down to mindset and strategy. A proper mindset understands that you can't have a successful trading career without taking some losses. They're essential to the business. And that shift in mindset makes taking losses, right, a whole lot easier. Another important aspect of mindset was a daily goal that we can control. So even if we do take a loss, or if the markets are crummy today, we can still feel good about our trading day. We can still feel accomplished, right? Because ultimately what we did accomplish is going to get us better in the long run. And lastly, having hobbies outside of trading, right? Things that make us happy that don't involve chart patterns, those are essential to our overall well-being. Now, with proper mindset, then we have the opportunity now to execute the proper strategy. In my experience, the most effective coping strategy is to step back and investigate. Combine that with a dash of a little bit of social support. Keep in mind, everyone will use this step back and investigate strategy a little bit different. For example, personally, if I take a loss, I take responsibility that I made the decision to enter the trade. The market didn't make me. My broker didn't make me. My indicators didn't make me. Okay, as soon as you stop playing that blame game, the better off you'll be. Take credit for your winners and take credit for your losses. Okay, take the bullet both times. Okay, you got to do that if you're going to be a real trader. Okay, a lot of people refuse to take responsibility and they blame everything else around them, and you're never going to get anywhere in life that way, let alone a trading career. Then, after I eat it, right, after I swallow it, after I take responsibility, then take a step back and then immediately start investigating. This is my personal approach, right? I take a step back and then I immediately start attacking the investigation process, trying to clear this issue, find out why it happened, and make sure I make some small changes to make it as difficult to keep making that mistake right in the future. Now, other people, however, let's talk about some other ways to do this. Other people, however, might take a loss and then they need to sleep on it and come back the next day with a clear mind so they can then begin the investigation process to avoid that in the future. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but one thing's for sure, you'll know it in your stomach when you do it the wrong way, right? So trust your gut. Another thing to keep in mind, some traders get quite emotional when they take losses, and you may find what works best for you is to go outside and scream it out. Blow off some steam, right? Scream all the curse words you want, right? Throw some stuff, right? Beat some, whatever you want to do, right? Go punching bag and go to town, right? Call your friends, tell them how crappy your day is going. But in the end, right, after you blow off that steam, come back to your desk and work it out with a level head, right? Now, other traders won't be so emotional. They'll think more analytically, and they can tackle the investigation a little more aggressively right away. Again, find out what works best for you. For example, I'm not very much of an emotional type of trader. When I take a loss, I swallow it, I move on, and I make changes quickly, right? So I don't have to sleep on it, right? I don't like to sleep on it. I won't sleep if I try to sleep on it, right? I'll tell you right now, if I went outside and I tried to scream it out, or if I called my friends to vent about how crummy my day is going, I would end up feeling worse after that. So everyone's different, right? I'm not that type of person, but you might be. And there's no right or wrong answer to that, right? At the same time, if you're someone who relies on social support after a loss or after any bad situation, trying to sit back down to your desk in isolation isn't going to work. You're better off leaving your office, having some fun with friends, come back tomorrow with a clearer mind. So again, it's really important that you think about who you are and what variation of these coping strategies works best for you. Do you take a step back and then immediately tackle the problem, or do you need a little time to vent, get a good night's sleep, talk with some friends, and then come back at it tomorrow? Once you learn which type of coping strategy works best, you now have the tools you need to deal with pretty much the worst the markets can throw at you. And when you combine a positive mindset with the right coping strategy along with disciplined risk management, you give yourself an incredible advantage over other traders in the market and also an advantage of reaching your long-term trading goals. Boy, what a great lesson, huh? I really enjoyed putting this one together. It definitely hit home, and I know it's going to help a lot of you guys. Wrapping things up, I hope you found a ton of value in today's psychology lesson. Do me a favor, will you drop me a comment below the video with any additional topics you'd like to see me cover in my next psychology video? Make sure you give me a thumbs up if you liked the video today. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and please don't forget to share this video with a friend. And don't forget, you can find me every morning, 8 o'clock Eastern time, rolling up my sleeves, working hard with all of our clients in our trade room here at School of Trade. I have a great free trial on the homepage. Check that out below the video here today, right? And don't forget to watch that nightly newsletter of mine every evening on my blog before 8 p.m. Eastern time. Guys and gals, I'm coming back at you later on this week with another psychology lesson. In the meantime, my name is Joseph. Thanks for watching. Be well out there. Be nice to each other, will ya? And be here next time. Adios, amigos. Bye-bye for now.